Everyone. It's Wednesday, June 29th, 2022. It's 9 a.m. And I'm Dale Berman. I'm calling the Finance and Budget Committee meeting to order. Can we have roll call, please?
Ford,
Present.
Leonard,
Leonard here.
Martin,
Martin present.
Sanchez, Surges, Tepe,
Happy here.
Shepro,
Shepro present.
Berman.
Berman's here.
Of course.
We need a motion and second to approve our minutes from May 25th, 2022.
Leonard moves.
Leonard moves,
Ford second.
Ford second. Any corrections, discussion of the minutes? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Sanchez, Surges,
Burgess, yes.
Tepe,
Happy, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. To the best of my knowledge, there are no public comments. Is there anyone online that waiting to speak? Moving on to item 4, Treasurer's Report, Mr. Kilborn. Good morning.
Good morning. My report is on file, but I'll give just a brief synopsis here. You'll see that our investment vehicles of choice are pointing up, but that has to do with the economic activity that we're looking forward to. Of note, you see that the 1-year T-bill is over 2% now. It's 2.8 reported in May. But so you know, we grabbed a 1-year T-bill last week at 2.31%. And that replaced a T-bill that we got in December that we had at 0.15. So big jump as we're moving forward. But as we've seen over the past couple of months, managing the economy is a little harder than riding a bike. 3 times in 2001, Treasury Secretary Yellen identified inflation as temporary, transitory, or should be over in the midterm. Back in October, she finally recognized that, like the rest of us, that inflation is here to stay and it needs to be addressed. All elements of the government are trying to address inflation, including the Fed, who back in June raised the interest rates up to 75 basis points. The year still looking at 2.75 to 3% for the year is the projection as we look forward. But understand the Fed doesn't control certain things which will influence how the economy is. That includes consumer sentiment. If people think it's a bad economy, they're not going to be spending. COVID is still out there, secondarily because of the supply chain. And some countries like China still are not producing because of COVID as they did before COVID. And then lastly, the war in Ukraine is going to have an effect on our economy and inflation. But as I mentioned earlier, we are investing into higher rates of interest. On June 1st, Illinois funds were offering 0.97%, And June 26th, it was up to 1.355%. A bond that we purchased back in December of 21 at 0.23%. We purchased last week at 2.83%. And I had earlier mentioned the 6-month T-bill that we purchased higher. So, and then in closing, unless you have any questions, I believe you have this information, but Kane County received the second tranche of the American Rescue Act funds on June 9th. We now have been in receipt of $103,413,041.
Very good. Any questions of Kilborn? Thank you very much. Have a good day. Auditor's report, Ms. Wegman.
Good morning. Our report is on file. I do want to point out a new addition that will be going forward. We have been requested to provide more information on some of the things that we approve. And so we have now included a more detailed report of the P-card transactions. You will see that there's a business purpose section added. So any business purpose that we do receive will be added there for your knowledge. That's work.
Very good. Any questions of the auditor? Thank you very much, Manny. And item 6, our finance director, Mr. Anzik, monthly report.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Included in the packet, as always, would be the budget performance reports for the month of July. I've included several comments in my report regarding the variances that are appearing at this point. All of them are explainable, and anything that has required a budget adjustment so far has already been dealt with. So there's really nothing of concern at this point, but I do have all of these listed just so you're aware of what's happening. The general fund projected contingency balance is, we started out with $1 million, so we still have $935,000 left that is available for general need, and we still have the $50,000 of the general fund contingency for adult prisoner room and board. In terms of the reserve balances, we still have the $125,000 that was reserved by judiciary for the build out at the JJC. And I believe there's a resolution that will be coming through to access those funds to apply towards that build out. We have $4.9 million in the property tax freeze protection fund, and the COVID payroll reimbursement reserve is at 17.7 million, and the emergency reserve is at 5.2 million. Capital funds at this point of the year, 18% is expended for building management and 27% for information technology. Shared and direct state tax revenue. This is very encouraging to see how much more revenue is coming in as compared to the prior year, and also then compared to the budget. At this point in the year, if we were to look at the year-to-date budget in comparison to the year-to-date actual collections, we have $1.7 million more in sales tax revenue. And just, I was trying to do some calculations. Let's see if I have it here. Before I came this morning, if we were to project that out for the year, we roughly have about 35% more sales tax revenue than what we had budgeted. And the reason for that, I believe, is the original budget, of course, was prepared back in the fall, and it was based on the state fiscal year's budget. Of course, and their budget had been prepared much earlier. So I don't think how quickly the economy had recovered was factored in to their budget, which trickled over to ours. But I think more importantly than that, I don't, it was stated in everything I read, including the Illinois Municipal League, that the impact of the leveling the playing field for Illinois Retail Act, which was the statute that was passed by the state of Illinois to charge sales tax based on the destination, the items that were being purchased were going, rather than where the sale was originating from. And so as a result of that statute and it going into effect, more sales tax revenue has shifted into Kane County than had otherwise been as a result of internet sales. And of course, we also have the cannabis sales tax that was added in. So altogether, it's at this point in the year, unless something changes in the economy that would impact this, it's looking like we may have about $6 million more in total this year than what we had budgeted for sales tax. Just going back to my report then, local use tax is about $37,000 over more than budget. So we've budgeted that pretty accurately. RTA sales tax is about 160,000 more than budget. And state income tax is $2 million more than what we had budgeted. And that is based on the Illinois Municipal League forecast. And so that is a very difficult thing for anyone to forecast. And so at least if there is a discrepancy, at least it's to our favor, and significantly so at $2 million. Property tax, personal property replacement tax is also almost $2.1 million over budget at this point, or greater than what we had budgeted. And that again is based on the Illinois Municipal League forecast. So that's a total of, at this point in the year, $6.2 million more of revenue than what we had budgeted. The second quarter receivable report, we're showing about $3.6 million outstanding from the state of Illinois. That's really normal, or actually a little bit less than normal. We have 6 months of probation salary reimbursements totaling $2.7 million, and that's typical. 4 months of KingCom at $172,000. Cell 911 surcharge reimbursements, that's typical. 3 months of KDOT reimbursements totaling $362,000 is typical. And the 3 months of the various health department grants total $123,000, and that varies depending on the grants that are involved each quarter. But everything is better than expected, actually. In terms of the budget, I think I'll skip over that for the moment and just go into the purchasing report, because there's a separate section listed on the agenda for the budget. So with the purchasing report, there have been, let's see, a couple of RFQs, requests for qualifications for Kane County Climate Action Implementation Plan, and also Natural Hazards and Mitigation Plan update consultants. There's a bid for commercial washer and dryer for the Sheriff Department and for Ogden Gardens water main improvements. Currently, year to date, there's a cost savings of $193,000 as a result of the bids and the quotes that were obtained through purchasing. That's all I have for my report. I'd be happy to answer questions.
Sturgis here. Hey, Joe, over the past couple of weeks, we had asked a question on the sales tax. What's included in that? And the response that I think Erica gave was, we're really not sure. We kind of get a report from the state saying, here's what y'all get. I don't understand what's, like, if you go to the grocery store, do we get that? If you buy a car, do we get, if you sell a house, do you get that? Is there any way we can just get some broad, really super broad brush information on that?
Well, are you talking about in terms of if we were to increase the sales tax, what would be
No, just in
impacted?
general. Just in general.
Those are two very different answers.
Pardon me?
Those would be two very different answers. If you're
Okay.
looking for that special county retail tax that we would add on, like the 1/4%.
No, that's not what I'm
0.5%,
looking for.
that involves a different subgroup of items
Yep.
than the general sales tax.
No, I'd actually made this, my specific statement was that when I first ran for office and was sworn in, John Holscheit sat where Jared is right now and made the statement, I don't think you were going to get as much money as we think we're going to get for this particular year. And John was absolutely spot on correct. And now 4 years later, I still don't have any better understanding of where that money comes from. What items are actually impacted by that we're receiving now, not future stuff or changes, but right now. And I'm just looking for some information.
There is a report on the Illinois Department of Revenue that kind of gives you the categories.
That'd be
of
great. even
items.
to
So
start on, yeah.
it's just very broad categories, but I can provide
Yeah,
that.
that'd be great. Just, and again, I'm not asking for hours worth of work, just something, you know what I mean? Just to understand it, it'd be
Okay.
wonderful.
Yes, I can.
Mr.
Thanks so much.
Leonard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Anzick, in looking at your report through, I think it was May 16th, showing the different tax revenues that are coming in,
Yes,
it looks like the variance is about 6.2 million, I think you said.
yes.
That being not quite 5 or not quite 6 of the 12 months for our fiscal year, would we assume that that would double, or do we have any way of really predicting what the next 6 months will bring?
Sales tax revenue, I mean, you have to go item by item. So sales tax revenue, I know this is what I was looking at early or late last night. I was trying to figure out what does 5 months worth represent? Because that's the largest number. And just looking, if we go back to 2019 to the pre-pandemic level, the first 5 months represent 38%. And then I looked at 2020 and it was, I think, 40% of the revenue. So, but I used 38% to kind of estimate out what the total would be for the year. And that's where I came up with, we would be getting, if that holds true, $6.2 million in total for this year, more than what we had anticipated. And then if you factor in like a 2% increase over the following years, because I think this was the year that transition took place with the internet sales tax.
Last year.
I'm s-
Wasn't it?
Okay. I'm sorry, did you have a?
I thought it happened last year.
It did, but I mean, in terms of, but we didn't factor it into our budget. And so that is where, what I mean by transition, it wasn't in our budget because we did not know what the impact would be. And now that we know, that difference is about $6.2 million. I'm sorry. So then going back to your question, then local use tax, that's about 5 months worth, but that fluctuates somewhat, but not dramatically, and it's not a very large number. RTA sales tax, that's pretty steady, although it correlates somewhat to sales tax. So you could say that's a 38%, represents 38%. But now state income tax, that's a very different figure because so much of it comes in the spring. But then of course there's payments throughout the year. So it's difficult to say that represents, 5 months worth. And that's the one that's very hard for everyone to predict. So that's probably the most questionable one. But the others, I think you could roughly say 38, maybe 40%.
Thank you very much for that explanation. And looking at that, and maybe I'm calculating things wrong, but if we use 38% as the variance amount up to this point, or say through June, I would think that that 6.2 million would be far greater than that.
Well, the 6.2 million I was referring to was just sales tax alone.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, my thought was, I think potentially, once again, it's very hard to predict the future, but over the rest of this year, I think there's a strong possibility from what we budgeted for 22 and where we come in, there might be a variance of anywhere from 10 to 13 million dollars for the year to the plus.
Well, I mean, I can't argue with it because we don't know.
Yes,
But it's based on what when we collected the revenue forecast information in the spring, and then with factoring in this update for sales tax revenue, and then the treasurer had also updated his investment return on investment figures. So that should bring in about 87% more, but it's not a lot of dollars to begin with, but that would bring about another $140,000 into the general fund. So factoring those few things in and taking all the other forecast information from all the departments with all the general fund revenues in all the different areas, some revenues are going down, and then we have these that are going up, but in total, will be about $7.7 million ahead of what we had budgeted. And just to refresh your memory, we had to use $10.7 million of reserves to balance the budget for this year. So if we're bringing in $7.7 million more revenue, then that means we only need to use $3 million of the reserves to balance the budget. Which means then if you kind of look at some of the finer details, we will not need that $6.9 million of the ARP revenue recoupment that we were originally budgeting for to use, because we'll have received much more revenue than what we were anticipating. And I mean, I'm just using logic. So it may be technically, if you do the fine calculations, maybe there's a tiny amount of revenue recoupment we may need, but generally speaking, we wouldn't need to use it. So then all that we would need to use would be about $1.4 million of the COVID payroll reimbursement, plus that $1.5 million of property tax freeze protection fund. So we're down to a smaller amount, more reasonable amount of reserves. But then you have to factor in all these additional expenses, and that's part of the conversation at the ad hoc budget committee meeting.
Well, thank you very much.
Madam Chair?
Joe, the increase in sales tax revenue, isn't that due to the increase in prices due to inflation? So if inflation decreases, our sales tax revenue will decrease as well?
I'm sure that must have some impact on it, but see, you also have to factor in that people are also maybe buying less. I mean, so those are the unknowns we don't, we can't zero in on, at least I can't. I don't have that type of data, but I think, yes, prices are higher, so the sales tax for things that are purchased would be higher, but are people buying less? I mean, that's the question.
Mr. Leonard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam Chair, I think you bring up a good point. I think, however, though, if we use a factor of 8% for inflation, the sales tax should go up proportionally that same amount. It's going up much more. So I think we do have additional sales.
I was reading an article that said that Social Security is perhaps going up 5% bump last year? And now it may go up 10 to 11% because of inflation.
It's a raise.
So to your point, I think we have to be very conscientious of what the inflation rate is.
Oh, yes.
I do have one other question, if
Yes,
I may
Madam
ask.
Chair.
Joe, this is a big question. Do we know how speaking of inflation, what the impact of, you don't have to answer that question today, but how it is going to impact our expenses with the rate of inflation, with commodities going up, energy costs going up, salaries going up, which the ad hoc committee is doing some adjustments with. So we're taking care of that study as best we can. But commodities, energy costs, that is going to certainly impact next year's budget.
Yes, I agree. It would. And I think, generally speaking, I think you could factor the rate of inflation in, that it will impact all of our costs. But each of the individual departments and offices, they're preparing their budgets with that in mind. And so once it's all compiled, once everything is in, we'll be able to see, at least from their perspective, what they think the increases are going to be compared to next year.
Very good. I think later in the meeting, we'll talk about our some new plans for budget presentation this year. So,
And then that is the next item on the agenda is the FY23 budget. Um, I basically have two important questions to ask you. Well, let me just see what I put down in my notes. First of all, I think most everyone has submitted their budgets, and by that I mean the departments and the offices, but there are a few that are taking a bit longer to submit. So we don't have everything. And this year we had implemented the position control system. We have hopes that once it's up and running to its full extent and all the data is captured, that it'll make things easier. But as with most implementations, the implementation part has been very difficult. There is a lot more data that needs to be input. And because it's brand new, we have not allowed the departments and offices to enter the information themselves because there's so many possible variations. We want to make sure that all of that is controlled. So they're submitting that information to the finance department and we're inputting it. So it is caused more work for us, but I think this way we can make sure there's consistency. And once we have that all established and the data that's in there, for example, we'll be able to know who's union, who's non-union, who has IMRF retirement, who has SLEP retirement, and it'll be the various types of wages. So all of that will be captured in position control, and we'll be able to do, I think, hopefully, that's the whole idea of this, better reporting. But we're not there yet. That data we still have quite a few changes that need to be put into that were submitted to us by the departments and offices. So that's not at a point where we could just readily run a report and tell you where we're at. We're still inputting data, but it's coming to a conclusion pretty quickly. So I think within the next week or so, we should be very close. Okay, so the two questions I had then for you were, number one is how best would you like to have the budgets from each department and office presented to you? This is for your benefit and for the public's benefit so that you can understand and know what is in the budget and why it's in the budget. And you'll have an opportunity to hear from each department and office and ask them questions so that they can help you understand that and be aware of what's in there. And the second question I have then is, what should typically we tell the departments and offices ahead of time at the beginning of the budget process how much of an increase they should factor in for the non-union employees. We've not said anything yet because that was to be determined. So we should, if you know at this point what type of an increase to recommend, we could then tell them and then we could factor that in, and then we would have a much better presentation package for you reflecting what your will is in terms of the non-union increase. But if you don't know yet and you need more time to determine that, that's fine. We could just leave it at the same rate going forward with the understanding that we'd be adding that in. So those are the two questions I have for you.
Ms. Gumbs has a question.
Thank you. You know what I would like to see as it pertains to common sense kind of things. Sounds like everything's very optimistic and looks bright and shiny. So I would like to see it presented as this cycle of conversation about how we can retain and recruit the people that we need at a competitive rate and keep them. If everything's looking so great, I would like that explained to me as to how we can get to that level and sustain it. However that's done.
Good comment.
I would just follow up with that. I know I've reported some good news, how we're bringing more revenue in than budgeted, but there's still that deficit. And this does not factor in all of the additional expenses that we need to be incorporating, especially that Safety Act and all of those expenses. So it's not that we have extra money to spare. We still have a revenue shortage that we need to deal with. So I just want to make sure. I hope I didn't mislead anyone by focusing on the good news.
No,
We're
thank you
gathering-
very much for that.
We're gathering all that information now with our comparison of salaries, et cetera. So I think that'll be, I guess I was going to wait till later in the meeting to talk about our budget plans for the year, but we might as well go into that now as to, in the past, we've had cow meetings and the different departments have come in, maybe 3 or 4 at a time, and present to us, which has made some long meetings and whatever. So I think the plan this year is for, they're presenting all these budgets to Joe, to the finance department, and Joe can massage them, and then he will present to a cow meeting, the budgets, and the directors of the different departments will be there to answer questions. So we won't have we'll have it all pretty well worked out before it gets to the point where we look at it. That's the plan, I think, that we'd like to see. Does that meet your requirements, Joe?
Oh, well, it was an option. It's not that I was planning on that.
Oh, no, I think it's a good option. I think.
Okay.
Yes, I do too.
No, I mean, it was something to
Yeah,
present to the committee. I mean, certainly it's how you would like to have it done.
well, I think, the committee has opportunity to say yay or nay, but
Mhm.
it's certainly, I think it's a better way. We'll find out. I mean, nothing's perfect. We have to go through. Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Joe, actually, my question was about your first question. And were you talking about when it's presented and like which meeting or how it's presented, like or a standardized format for each department or?
Well, what I was thinking, I guess, primarily is what type of a format in terms of meeting. I mean, the two options that we've thought of would be to continue to do it at a cow meeting. So you'd have that reserved time just for budget presentations. And we do recommend that everybody keep it as short as possible, but the meetings still run long. Or we could add them in to the standing committee meetings so that each department and office would present their budgets to their standing committee. But basically what you end up with is taking that same amount of time that would have been in cow meetings and adding it on to the standing committee meetings. So now you're making those meetings, especially judicial and public safety meeting, committee meeting, quite long unless you spread it out over a couple of meetings. So you're not really getting away from the amount of time that it takes to present the budgets. It's just if you want to see it in that summarized detail, and by summarized detail, I mean, if you want to see the organization plan, if you want to see the breakdown and the types of expenses, department by department, it'll probably take me just as long to do that for you. And I won't have all the detailed information, which is why I would have to rely on the department heads and the elected officials to answer the detailed questions. But we can certainly do that if that's your preference. It's all the same information, basically. It's just how are you most comfortable in receiving it and processing it?
Madam Chair.
Thank you. Joe, I'm thinking about judicial public safety because that's a behemoth. Should we do that in one meeting and then have everything else on a second meeting? So that we understand what judicial public safety's needs are and then everybody else's needs. Would that make it a little easier for all of us to consume and for a presentation, but very much in the same model where you would be presenting the aggregate data?
I see what you're suggesting. Yes, I think that would make sense because especially considering that Safety Act and all the implications of that, I think that probably would take more time.
Very good. All right, yes, Sturgis.
Sturgis here, 2 questions. Joe, on your first
Mute
portion here,
microphone, please.
thank you for the reminder. Appreciate that. Joe, on your first question, you were talking about non-union. Are we suggesting that we would be doing something differently for the non-union versus the union?
Well, that would.
Which I don't think we've historically done, correct?
No, it wouldn't be different. And maybe that's part of the issue. What we've done before, at least in the, 9 years I've been here. So it's been only a few different collective bargaining agreements, seasons I've been through. We have typically patterned the non-union increases off of the AFSCME So typically they've gotten the 2%, or maybe there was a couple of years where they got 2.5%. So then once that contract was settled, we did the same thing for the non-union people. And of course, sheriff and others were different. They had different things to negotiate and different reasons. But we were pretty much in step with AFSCME as far as the non-union. But I don't know that AFSCME has been settled yet, or if it is, then it escaped my notice. So if you want to wait until they're settled before you decide.
No, I'm just
fine.
wondering if strategically, or we're making a pattern shift from not mimicking that any longer, or not, if that's what you were asking. I was just
Oh,
confused
no,
on
that
that.
was not my intention. It was
Okay.
just if you already know what the minimum might be that you'd be willing to provide to some, to the unions, like AFSCME in particular. I don't know at what state, maybe we shouldn't even be talking about it. I don't know where we're at with negotiations.
Super. And then, Mr. Chairman, second question, I guess in just listening a bit here, I'm confused with some of the roles between, we have an ad hoc committee, we have a finance committee, and then we have a committee of the whole. And we seem to be intermixing, saying we want this here, this there, and that there. Do you have an overarching plan on what you want each committee to be looking at? I mean, what's the point of the ad hoc? What's the point of the finance? What's the point of the committee of the whole? I mean,
I think, well, in my mind, the ad hoc was a committee, or is a committee to get everybody's attention as to what our requirements are going to be and what we have in the Safety Act and et cetera. I think that's probably the biggest thing. But I don't think that we say that ad hoc committee is going to look at anything really different than what the finance committee is looking at. At least that's my impression. And that's what I had intention. So
just trying to understand the scope, and that specific
That's-
item is big enough. Let me
that's
tell
really
you.
what I want.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
I mean, it's, yeah. Oh, Mr. Martin.
A comment on the non-union wages. As we've been progressing through negotiations, we've had a number of somewhat hybridized situations depending on which union and which group that we're facing here. And I agree with Cliff's memory that we typically use the status of our union contracts as a basis for determining what we do with the non-union. Without having a good handle on the conclusion of the union, I wouldn't want to either salt the well or create a problem, because typically the non-union has followed the union. So if we come in and we say, well, here's what we're going to do for the non-union people, I'm not sure where that puts us, either in negotiations or in fairness to the non-union.
Kind of excuse the yin and yang there.
I don't know about yin and yang. I just know that in my mind, it might be the cart before the horse, which is more to my understanding.
Yes, Ms. Debbie.
Mr. Chair, thank you, Mr. Chair, Tepe here. I don't know, I'm not a little bit confused. Did we reach a consensus on what we're going to do about budget presentations or not?
No,
Okay, so we did not reach.
we have not. But we can discuss that still. I mean, we can
Well,
ask for
I mean, my point is that I think we should allocate more time than I saw last year and looking at the individual department budgets. So that's my comment on that. I would like to do a little bit more, not necessarily scrutiny, but certainly understanding, because I think this is going to be a strange year. And I think a little bit more time spent and us understanding it with our input would be appropriate. Thank you.
Mr. Martin.
I don't know that I'm disagreeing with you, but it's going to sound like it, Vern.
Much easier to agree.
These presentations that go on for hours, I think become numbing. And you're correct. It's a great theory. We ought to be looking at this. The information should be made available to us. But by the time we are sitting here and at 6 o'clock and we're hearing our fourth presentation. I'm not sure how constructive our review is. And I like the idea of, I don't know if filtering is the right term, but I like the idea of there being an order to the presentation and that Joe lead that charge. And I think all of us, to the degree we have questions about individual departments or expenditures, ought to have access to the information so we can get them addressed. But I just, maybe everybody else is more attentive than I am. After about 90 minutes,
Those questions that each individual has, that certainly doesn't have to be brought up at a meeting. They can be discussed with the department head or whatever to get satisfaction for themselves as to what is meant or what is Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Leonard here. Mr. Anzick, I know your plate is totally full, but I really do like the idea of them bringing everything into you. And then maybe everyone on the board getting a synopsis of each department's request. The idea of bringing every department in to make their presentation, it's kind of a dog and pony show. They ask probably for a little bit more than they want. We negotiate it down and it takes hours, as Mr. Martin said. And I think a lot of attention is lost. And I think really what we need to do, and Madam Chair brought up, possibly judicial and public safety, that budget should be presented at that committee. I agree with that. That's 65% of the budget. So, if judicial and public safety got a detailed presentation on that, I think that would work out well. It would save the whole board as a whole from having to go through things. And then that recommendation from judicial and public safety could be moved on to finance where the whole board could review it. The other departments, I think, once again, Mr. Anzick, I apologize, but I think if it was presented to you and you looked at those numbers and then came up with reasonable ideas, I think it would shorten the process and I think it would make it more effective. And for anybody on the board that doesn't understand the budget process or what people are asking for, I think each and every department should give us a one-page summary of what they're asking for. I don't think that's asking too much. I mean, basically, judicial and public safety, they're going to ask for the mandate request of 5.2 million and pay raises. And, that's basically what's going to be happening, excluding the mandates with most of the other departments. It's going to be a payroll consideration. So I would really like to see it siphoned through your department. Once again, I apologize for putting the work on you, but I do think it's the most efficient way to do it.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, Mr.
Thank you. I have some similar thoughts. I think if you look at the county code, it talks about how each committee is supposed to review the budgets for the departments and offices that report to it. And it's just a practice we've fallen out of the entire time I've been on the board, at least. So I do think that's a good thing. Otherwise, it's just bypassing the committee altogether, going right to the board. We don't have much time to think it over, and that's it. If the committees each review the budgets, we've got more time. And I think Bill's idea of like a one pager, I had a similar thought, like have some standardized information that'll be very helpful for us to get a snapshot of their budgets. They can come into the meetings, we can ask questions, poke at it a little bit. If we want to make any changes that we want to recommend, pass that up to the board. I like the idea of continuing the committee of the whole presentations, but I do think having more firm restrictions on use of time is well within our ability to command and to require. And I think department heads and officials can oblige to that. I'd prefer that over having Mr. Anzick have to go through everybody's litany of requests and situations, but we could cap it to 5 minutes and then everybody could have the big conversation that way instead of a 10-minute presentation for each. So those are just some of the thoughts I had, but I do like the idea of committees having more touching, more contact with it.
I would assume that the goal would be that Mr. Anzick wouldn't have to go through the litany of
Presentation.
office, office organization and the charts and all that. I mean, we'd just be looking at numbers and get it done. I mean, Bill used the term dog and pony show, and I don't think Joe would entertain a dog and pony show. I think he would say, give me some numbers and don't show me the pictures. And besides,
1,000 hours of work on a one-page summary.
I think, Mr. Martin, I think I was just thinking
finance-
that not everybody is going to have heard all the presentations. So that's the only reason I thought maybe it would still be good to have a 5-minute quick presentation from the department at committee of the whole. But obviously, it's whatever this committee wants.
Mr. Chairman Bates, please.
Bates,
As still somewhat of a newbie on the board, I've only been through the budget process once, and I'm going to side with Mr. Tepe on this one, that it's very complicated, and the more I understand about it, the better. And last year, I expected it to be more interactive, more questions being asked. And I'd like to know from every from every budget department what they've done to save money. You know, when I'm at the grocery store, I always try to put back one thing, or Macy's. You know, always put back one thing that you decide you don't need. I'd like to hear that from the departments as well. Thanks.
thank you. Madam Chair.
All right, so I think we've got, I'm trying to listen very carefully. We have a couple of suggestions on the table. One is to do an aggregate budget presentation broken up into two components, judicial public safety, then all the other departments. Two separate presentations, and Joe would be presenting that in big picture format. The other one is an abbreviated several cows. Actually, I think there's 3 abbreviated several cow meetings where there would be a shortened presentation by each department head and elected official of their budget requirements. The third one is having all of the budget presentations being presented to the to the committees, which would extend that out. And then after that presentation and understanding, then once again, it would be presented back in version number 1, which is the aggregate, where Joe then presents in big picture what the requirements are. Is that correct? Those are the 3?
Mr. Leonard,
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is Leonard speaking. You know, Mr. Sanchez brought up the idea of 5 minutes per department. I believe we have about 13 departments that present. That would be 65 minutes. If we would stick to that 5-minute criteria at a committee of the whole for each department, then I think, you know, everyone could get a bit of a presentation without getting into the weeds too deeply about all of their inner wants or needs. So, you know, I kind of like a hybrid too. I like the idea of, you know, possibly doing a 5-minute maximum presentation at a committee of the whole from all 13 departments. You know, that's an hour and 5 minutes. I think we can all, you know, pay attention for that long. And then also too, if they want to do that, a presentation similar, whatever, to their committees, and then the committees would make their recommendations to the finance department or committee. And then we would go to the board for their final approval. I think that might work. And then everyone gets a little bit more of a presentation with the committee of the whole. But the key is it's got to be limited to 5 minutes per department, which, you know, it can be done.
Be hard. Yeah, it'll be hard. The one thing that I'm sorry, Mr. Martin, the one thing that I would suggest, and I think we'd all, hopefully we'll all agree with that, is that the departments or elected officials' budget detail, even though they may not be presenting that, is available to us and to the public. So there's full disclosure, and that I think is critically important.
all right, Mr. Martin, sorry.
You know, when we, and I'm not, you know more about the code than I do as to what the I'm talking to Jarrett for those online. I don't want to take away authority from the committees. And I understand the role that they have, but in my thoughts, you know, this is all, you can say what you want to about this. This is nothing but a financial discussion. And the concept of dealing with the money, and whatever you say, it's all finances. So for pick any committee, if the committee sits and reviews it, and they become an advocate for their staff, which they ought to do, then we come back here and we have the same issue looking at us. You know, I mean, I would hope I would be supportive of the people that I work with, and every other department would. And whether we like it or not, this is simply a discussion of money. And if a department is going to spend money, I don't want to sound too shallow, but you know, it's their decision. I don't want to micromanage anybody and say, well, I don't think you need another administrative assistant. It's all money. Here's how much money we've got. What do you want to do with it? And because we constantly and appropriately say that we have a great staff, we have great department heads. Let's recognize what our position is, which is to say, here's the size of the purse. And so I don't know that a recommendation from separate committees is going to move us forward on that. It's going to me, it creates kind of another level of another mandated filtering of an advocated position. How's that for too many words to make a simple thought?
Mr. Sturgis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. John, one of the things I've really been struggling with over the past 6 months, and I've been very vocal about it, is trying to understand those items controlled by the county board and their departments versus those of the elected officials. And Miss Neerman has been very nice and patient with me over the past month, saying, Mr. Sturgis, if you look at the county-wide elected as offices and phrase them there, and under the control of the county board, call those departments, that really helped me segregate. And then I asked her, well, can you tell me within those offices who has internal control? So truly, we are nothing more than a financial instrument to those offices versus those departments. We're a little bit more to those departments than just finance. Those do fall under our jurisdiction. And that's really, how do I say this? Enlighten me as to what my role is in some of these budget discussions, because we don't have the ability to micromanage those internal controlled offices like we do those departments that are under the jurisdiction of the county board. And, you know, to Mavis's point, I don't know that I realized that 2 years ago.
No.
You know, I don't know that I wanted to realize it 2 years ago, but now, you know, as things crunch, you know, and Joe probably is giggling inside as I'm saying this, but, you know, as I'm realizing that now, truly, for those offices, we are just a financial buffer. That's the limit that we do. And this is our opportunity to review that once and then zip for the rest of the year. So just for what that's worth,
Well, you're right in what you're saying, you know, I think it was not what I was used to in the way of government, okay? And it's been a real learning experience the last 2 years. But that's, what you're saying is true. Definitely. Any other comment? Oh, Mr. Harden.
It's true, but in the context of our determining a budget, to me, it's more of a nuance, because there might be independent control. There is independent control of within the offices of the elected officials. But if you have a competent department head over whom we technically have more authority, to me, but for the nuance that ultimately we have some more say with the department head than an elected official, I don't want to second guess department heads any more than I want to second guess the state's attorney or anybody else. They are hired to do that job. And if we don't think they're doing a good job, they shouldn't be there. And if they're doing a good job, I don't want to interfere with their activity any more than I want to interfere with the auditor, the state's attorney, or anybody else. So I think there's a definite technical distinction, but in its implementation, at least to me, if we've got competent people, which we do, it's not our responsibility toward our department heads is not dissimilar from our responsibility toward elected officials.
All right. Do you think, have we come up with what,
Yeah.
which of the three categories we want to follow?
Mr. Chairman, could we possibly, within the next few days, think about this and then send you as chairman of this committee our recommendation on what we want, and then you could come up with a consensus on which direction we should go?
Okay.
I think.
All right, Mr. Anzek, yep, meet your Madam Chair.
As a way to do it, why don't we, so that Dale's not inundated, if I could suggest that we send all of your, I'll have Jane working with Dale, put out a query, and then we can send it to Jane and she can collect it all.
Very good.
Send everything to Jane.
Very good.
Correct.
Good,
And
thank
she'll
you.
send out the email with the query.
All right. Any other comments for Mr. Anzek?
No.
I just have one possible
All right.
suggestion would be, I'm wondering if those organizational charts that have been traditionally part of the committee, the whole meeting presentations, maybe if, I don't know that you necessarily need all that detail presented to you in that meeting, maybe that could be provided to the standing committees since they'd be more interested in the detailed functioning of the
Yeah.
department and
Mhm.
office.
Idea, Joe.
Yeah, I would say the detailed budget and a summary, like a one pager, be given to the committees, and then committee of the whole is just here's what you need to know.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Well, item 7, new business.
Moving right along.
Moving right along. We don't have the entire alphabet today anyway, so.
That's true.
Item A, resolution. The Kane County State's Attorney Office Child Physical Abuse and Cyber Crimes Budget Adjustment for $217,976. It's for 7 new positions, and this is to fund it for the remainder of fiscal year 2022.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez moves,
Leonard seconds.
Leonard second. Discussion.
Tepe here.
Yes, Mr. Tepe.
Are these positions a result of the Safety Act or are these a result of something else?
Oh, I think the result of the Safety Act.
Some of them are. I think 2 or 3 positions are part of the Safety Act. The other ones are not.
That's a really good answer.
It's,
Maybe.
it's an accurate
Well,
one.
Our state's attorney isn't here right now, so.
That's okay. We'll follow up because it, relates to numbers that we're looking at in other areas. So I'm wondering if, anyway, you know what I'm talking about.
I do.
So thank you.
Very good. And this other discussion? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. And item B, a resolution. The State's Attorney's Office Pre-Arrest Diversion Fiscal Year 22 Opiate Overdose Prevention Grant. And that grant was for $6,200.
Leonard moves.
Ford second.
Leonard moves, Ford second, discussion.
Tepe.
Tepe,
I just want to make a comment that this pre-diversion program is now moving ahead pretty well. And they're beginning to see results, but it takes a while to get things started because it was started 2 years ago. And the first thing they had to do was find funding. So this is one way to continue this on. And I just want to make that observation for everybody.
remember, this is a grant.
Yes.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Sturgis, yes.
Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. Item C, a resolution approving a supplemental budget adjustment for the Kane County Sheriff's Office Correction Officers Collective Bargaining Agreement for a total of $324,188. And it's for fiscal year 2021, 2022.
Sanchez moves.
And just moves.
Lu-
Ford second, discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Sturgis, yes.
Tepe,
Pepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. And item D, a resolution approving county board travel meal lodging reimbursement request for $73.99.
Leonard moves.
Leonard
Sanchez
moves.
seconds.
Get that one.
Deputy seconds, discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Sturgis, yes.
Tepe,
Pepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. Item E, a resolution authorizing fiscal year 22 hazard mitigation program grant for the Office of Emergency Management. And this is a grant not to exceed $63,500.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez moves.
Martin, second.
Martin second, discussion. This is a grant. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Sturgis, yes.
Tepe,
Pepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. Item F, a resolution approving the matching grant amount and recipients of the Illinois Farmers Market Association mini grant program in Kane County, $18,000.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez moves.
Leonard, second.
Leonard second, discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Sturgis, yes.
Tepe,
Pepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. Item G, a resolution authorizing to enter into grant agreements, and these are multiple agreements for grants. We have a motion to approve.
Leonard moves.
Leonard moves.
Sanchez seconds.
Sanchez, second discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Sturgis, yes.
Tepe,
Pepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. And item H, a resolution authorizing fiscal year 2022 contract with Integrated Solutions Consulting for completing the update to the 2015 Kane County Natural Hazards Mitigation Plan. And it's pending a federal government grant of $63,500. And it's matching our Kane of $21,667.
Martin moves.
Martin moves.
Leonard, second.
Leonard second, discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Sturgis, yes.
Tepe,
Pepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. Item I, a resolution approving a service agreement with Success International of Saratoga, Florida for reentry initiatives, $43,380.
Ford moves.
Ford moves.
Sanchez seconds.
Sanchez second, discussion.
Could someone, Sturgis here, could someone just explain a little bit what this is?
Reentry.
Is there any, does anybody from,
From the sheriff's group.
I believe reentry is the, once you've been incarcerated and you're going through that transition to the public life, rather than previous life you had for however many period of months or years. That's the transitional program.
Yeah, this has been in effect for a couple of years and he's working on doing
Yeah.
this.
if I can just make a statement, and I'm going to speak for Miss Lewis as well on this. We both volunteer within the prison system, and there's just no easy way to say that upon leaving, if you don't have a support system there, the recidivism rate is through the roof. And so, you know, people talk all the time, you don't need programs like this. I disagree. You truly do need programs like this. So I am wholeheartedly supporting this.
Things don't happen in a vacuum. Somebody's
Correct.
got to be
correct.
leadership. There's got to be someone that's.
Dale, I was at the prison one day and one young man said, Mr. Surgis, I'm being released next week. And I said, where are you going? He goes, I'm staying right here. I said, why that? And he goes, I said, why is that? And he goes, because I don't have any family to take care of me when I'm out. And I'm just going to wind up right back here anyway. So until I have this worked out and talk about breaking your heart. So a program like this truly incredible. So
Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. Item J, a resolution approving purchase of mobile spike system for the Kane County Sheriff's Office Public Safety Division.
Surges moves.
$36,706. Have a motion. Second.
Surges.
Surges.
Sanchez, second.
Second. Discussion.
This just sounds cool.
I'd like to see how it works.
How you want to say how?
I don't think you would.
No, it's automatic.
We'll use your car to try that. Okay.
Isn't it automatically ejected from the car, from the police? I don't know.
I'm not sure.
We'll have to ask that question.
It's true.
Roll call,
It's
please.
true. Yeah.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. Item K, a resolution approving the purchase of 2 replacement vehicles for the Sheriff's Office Division, Office Investigation Division, $85,522.
Leonard
Dodge
moves.
Durango. Leonard moves, Ford second. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Tepe,
Yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. Item L, a resolution authorizing a contract for substance abuse counseling and medically assisted treatment within the Kane County Sheriff's Office Adult Justice Center, $330,000. It's with the Lighthouse Recovery Incorporated, and it's in the sheriff's current budget.
Ford moves.
Ford moves,
Surges, second.
Georgia second, discussion? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. And item M, a resolution authorizing a contract extension for generator preventive maintenance service not to exceed $30,000 with the Illini Power Products Company. It's a renewal. Motion to approve.
Ford moves.
Ford moves.
Sanchez, seconds.
Sanchez second. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford, Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. Item O, a resolution authorizing Omnia Partners Cooperative Agreement. And it's to be reviewed as necessary.
Mr. Berman, I think did you slide over item N?
Yeah, commercial.
Yes, I did. We'll go back to item N.
Great.
I had N marked and read O. A resolution authorizing contract for commercial insurance broker,
Surges moves.
$36,000 to Presidio Insurance. Surges moves.
Leonard, second.
Leonard seconds. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. Now, item O, resolution authorizing Omnia Partners Cooperation Agreement, and it's to be reviewed as needed. Have a motion to approve?
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez moves.
Surges, second.
Here's a second. Is there discussion on this? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. P, a resolution authorizing Sourcewell Cooperative Agreement, again, a review as needed. Motion.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez
Leonard,
moves.
seconds.
Leonard second. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Sturgis, yes.
Tepe,
Tippy, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. Item Q, a resolution authorizing the contract with Performance Construction for the construction of the Ogden Gardens Water Main Replacement Project for $1,800,000.
Martin moves.
Ford seconds.
Martin moves, Ford second, discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Sturgis, yes.
Tepe,
Tippy, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. Item R, a resolution confirming establishment of fee for full property tax record file at 5 cents per tax parcel.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez moves.
Anybody second?
Tippy, second.
Tepe second, discussion.
I don't know what this is.
It's a surcharge.
Is it something that we normally do? Is this something that's new? Is this something?
Mr. Kilborn's here.
It's something we normally do.
Yeah, you can come up.
Yeah, ask Kilborn.
It's a fee to get the information.
We have companies like Zillow who request the property tax information. This would set the cost for that because that is a commercial purpose.
So they pay us.
Correct.
Make it 10 cents.
Oh, look at the number. of
Zillow's the name you'd recognize. Others are Ryan Holmes, Influence, CoreLogic. They make these requests. They use the information for their commercial purpose.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Sturgis, yes.
Tepe,
Tippy, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. Item S, approving May 2022 claims paid $8,996,857.44.
Leonard moves.
Leonard moves,
Sanchez seconds.
Sanchez second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Sturgis, yes.
Tepe,
Tippy, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. I have no old business. I need a motion to place our reports on file.
So moved.
Sturgis moves.
Leonard, second.
Leonard second. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Sturgis, yes.
Tepe,
Tippy, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. My comments, I think we've discussed our budget presentation and we'll continue on with the following that. We have no need for an executive session to the best of my knowledge.
Yes, we do.
We do?
Session
Session
minutes.
minutes.
Closed session minutes.
We have a closed session for what reason?
Review of closed session minutes. So
To
moved,
review
Sturgis,
closed session.
Sanchez seconds.
How did you get that information and I didn't?
because she's right there.
It's the routine. It's just that
Just a
month.
motion to go into closed session to review.
I know. Do we have a motion to go into closed session to review
Already been made and seconded.
executive minutes? Who was the motion?
Sanchez
Sanchez
moves.
moves.
Leonard seconds.
Leonard second. All right, roll call.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Sturgis, yes.
Tepe,
Tippy, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes.
Okay, everybody online, please watch for the invite to enter the closed session and accept that. Be aware we are live streaming until I give you the word that we are officially in the closed session. We'll get started here shortly.
Congratulations.
Is there anybody hearing my voice that feels they should be in the closed session?
Thank you.
Just give it another moment for YouTube to catch up. Okay, you are in open session.
We now are back in regular session. We need a motion to approve Exhibit A. Oh, roll call, I'm sorry, roll call. Who's
Ford,
there?
Ford,
Present.
Leonard,
Leonard here.
Martin,
Martin present.
Sanchez,
Sanchez here.
Surges. Tepe,
Happy here.
Shepro,
Shepro present.
Irag,
Yes. Here.
Berman.
Berman's here.
I'm so sorry.
All right, we need a motion to approve Exhibit A of our
So move,
Closed
Surges.
session.
semi-annual review.
Surges moves.
Surges
Leonard-
moves,
Leonard
Leonard
seconds.
seconds. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Tepe,
Happy, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. Motion for adjournment.
Mr. Kenyon?
Oh, on
Oh,
behalf,
Mike can't do it.
on behalf of Mike Kenyon. Make a motion.
Motion by Ford,
Leonard seconds.
Leonard second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?